County Board of Zoning Appeals to order. And we have Bill Peepleman, Steph Ritter, Alex Sharp, Ron Makla, and Julie Kuntz, all here. So these are all of our members. The first item is to adopt the meeting agenda. Are there any changes or deletions or additions?
I would entertain an opportunity, if time permits, under new business or whatever, to discuss hay bale signs. No, not looking for any decisions or anything, but just it is an issue that has come up at the supervisors meeting, and I think it would be beneficial for us to talk about it because we can make a recommendation perhaps to the Planning Commission in regards to that situation because we have to deal with
it. And that would be right above adjourn.
Yeah.
Are you making a motion to that effect?
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Could you just state it clearly?
He wants to add a discussion about hay bale signs. Hay bale signs right before at the very end, if we have time. It's all at hay bale signs. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Nay.
Nay? Okay. The next item, annual meeting requirements. We could do first the adopting the meeting schedule if you'd like. We meet every month on the fourth Wednesday, except there are 2 months when we make it the whatever the previous Thursday is, which is November because of Thanksgiving and December because of Christmas. I believe these dates are correct. Did everybody check them? You check them?
No, we can check them. Michelle?
You,
I double check them.
she double checked.
Is that just the meeting dates or also the meeting location?
Well, this is saying 7 p.m. courtroom, second floor.
Okay. I'd like to talk about that.
Okay.
Location.
Okay. Go ahead.
ADA. This county has not dealt with that right of people to attend meetings very well for years. I came in here tonight. The back door where the ramp is locked. And then the other door is locked. If somebody came here in a wheelchair tonight, they couldn't get in. We can meet at the library, and for the size of the audience, crowd, participants, whatever, we can handle that very easily. And we would be making an effort to allow people that are handicapped to attend our meetings. And I think it's time that somebody made a statement in this county recognizing those people and where we have our meetings. And I think we can do that. So I would say that I would like to see, the dates obviously are set, but that we change our location to the Jameson Room at the library.
I'm not sure the Jameson Room will really accommodate a number.
I can't hear you.
I'm not sure the Jameson Room will be sufficient to accommodate a number.
It's a rolling, the library is way more ADA compliant.
No, I'm not sure there are enough there. Are you talking about the meeting room or the main?
Yeah, there are numerous boards that meet there and have met there in the
I know, I've
past.
met there.
And like I said, normally, and yes, there are times when we may have a meeting that obviously is going to attract a larger audience. And in that case, there are other locations in the county and we can change that location to accommodate. But at some point in time, Rappahannock County has to, step up and make the choice. I mean, are people that are in those positions welcome to our meetings or not?
Well, let me ask a question. What if we take steps to make sure that the ramp is open, that the ramp door is open? We haven't thought about this, or I haven't lately.
A lot of people.
We do have the wheelchair or the platform that
Does
comes up
anybody-
the stairs. I'm assuming that works. But we could certainly check that. I think that's a good point, but I don't know that. I think maybe we could make it work here and be more aware of that. I'd be willing certainly to do that.
The point is
Yeah,
making.
I mean, not a ramp.
The point is
Yeah.
making a point. If an individual in a wheelchair comes to a meeting in this location, and during the meeting, they need to use the restroom, what do? Do they raise their hand and say, "Excuse me, could somebody turn the stairway thing on and get me down and bring me back up?"
Well,
If you're at the library, there is no problem. And like I said, it's an issue, it's a point. At some point in time, Rappahannock's got to start dealing with it.
Ron, I completely agree with you on that. I'm pretty sure we have to check with the library on the schedule before making a decision as to whether or not we can take them. I had knee replacement surgery like a week and a half ago, and I was thinking, how am I going to get up the stairs? But I made it, so. But it is, I think it is an issue. I mean, I know there's this seat. Who knows if it works?
well, I think it does work. My understanding is it does work, but, I mean, it does, my understanding is it does, the lift does work. So if somebody were, that's my understanding. Now,
I mean, like I said,
so we do.
I'm trying to make a point,
Yeah.
and if you all aren't willing to go along,
No, I
that's
think-
fine.
No, I think-
but,
No, I think you've made the point.
Okay.
That's a good point.
I think it's a good point, too.
What? Is there any action to be taken, or?
Well, just we should make sure that those ramps are open, or in the alternative, find out if the library can accommodate.
Well, and then we can call the sheriff's department and make sure, is that who handles the, or who would we call, Michelle, do you know? If we need a door open?
I have the keys.
Oh, you have the keys, okay. So we could just make sure, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah.
Just, does that answer that for now? See what we do.
Be a whole lot easier over at the library, but whatever you want to do.
I'm not sure I'm willing to give up this location just yet, that's all. I mean, if we can make it work.
Yeah, I think we ought to look into, before we decide that the library is a big enough place, I'd be surprised if it could handle this much more than this with the social distancing, maybe, 2 more couples or something without, 3 more couples without getting in trouble, and that's like, the spacing, I think, is going to be a problem over there.
Yeah. What would,
We need to investigate it.
so,
Plus, our meetings are on a certain day of the month, and it's not given that the library is going to be available on that day.
yeah. So I'd suggest we defer on that, but I think
That's fine.
you made a good point, and I'd be willing to investigate that enough to make sure that we do have access.
Okay.
So that being said, are we ready to adopt this schedule?
Well, I so moved that we adopt the schedule.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there anything further? All in favor? Aye. Okay. The next item is, and Michelle is, or we've called it annual meeting requirements. So, because there is a little bit of a conflict between the ordinance and our procedure, we elected to do the election of officers today instead of at the December meeting. Is there a preference to what order we do it? We could do the chairman first. And I just, before taking nominations for the chairman, I just want to say for myself, I'm happy to do it, but I'm also happy to not do it. So I enjoy it, but if someone else is interested, I'd be happy not to do it. So that's all I'm saying. Are there any nominations?
I nominate you.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay. Then is there a motion to close the?
Make a motion to close.
I second.
Okay, I guess for me as chairman, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is vice chair.
I'll nominate Ron for vice chair.
Yeah, and I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? Is there a motion to close the?
Motion to close.
Second. Okay, all in favor of Ron?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. FOIA officer.
I'll nominate, and I'll explain why, Julie. Because I've been the FOIA officer, and as the FOIA officer, you have the knowledge base, but it's sort of a paperwork thing, and I'm making an assumption here, in that we're going to nominate Julie to be the secretary, but it's basically a thing where you just take information and you put it online and you send it to someone. And in the past, it's been, I had to go to the secretary and say, do this or do that. And it would be much easier for it just to go to the person that's serving as a secretary and they just transmit the information.
How do you feel? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Well, I definitely second that.
Double. Okay, are there any other nominations? And I did skip the secretary, I'm sorry, but we'll get back to that. Are there any other nominations for FOIA officer? Okay, all in favor for Julie as FOIA officer?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, for secretary,
I nominate Julie.
is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Is there a motion to close the nominations?
Motion closed.
Second. Okay, all in favor of Julie?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then the minutes, I guess, is the next item. Are there any improvements, deletions, qualifications?
I found nothing. I'll make a motion that we,
Is
if
there-
no one else has found anything, to ask for okay the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first item, this is starting the public hearing. The first item is Akazo? How do I spell it? How do I say it?
The tech side.
A tech side?
Yep.
Okay, a tech side family apartment. If you'd like to come forward, or if you want to come to that front row maybe, and your name is?
Howie.
Howie? And you're the applicant?
Sorry?
You're the applicant,
Yeah.
okay. and you want to do a family apartment. You want to tell us a little more about what you plan to do or hope
Yeah,
to do?
a small apartment for my in-laws and sometimes and parents.
Could you speak up?
My in-laws and parents live in Fairfax, and sometimes they come in and stay with us for a while. I would like to have a apartment, a one-bedroom or so in this place.
And I have a question for Michelle, just so I understand. The category of family apartments is still the old one?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Because they're changing that, is that
That's correct.
soon?
It's
probably?
proposed to be changed.
Okay. And so you're familiar that you can't use it to anybody but family for a couple of years, 2 years?
Yes,
The other requirements, 1,200 square feet or less.
yes,
Own entrance, not shared with other spaces.
yes. And the family apartment is going to be sharing the well with the main house, is that Yes. correct? And there are you got two bedrooms in the main house and one, or 3 bedrooms in the main house? Yeah, 3 bedrooms in the main house.
And you're going to build the family apartment,
Yes.
but it doesn't exist. The building is not.
And then, we got a request about saving dark skies. And I've been on the park board and have a vested interest in dark skies. And I was wondering if you would be willing to put in lighting that wouldn't interfere with our dark skies designation. In other words, there are certain lights that will reflect down rather than up.
You would be willing to do
Yeah.
that? You need one of these?
I have one.
Oh, you have one?
Okay, great.
Okay. Is it any other questions from the board? And this issue of the 10 feet from the well, that's not going to cause you a problem building where you can't spray for termites? Or
Yes.
you understand all that? And we have health department approval? Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll open the public hearing. Or public comment on this. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on this application? Okay, I will close the public hearing then, or the public comment portion. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Any conditions or just?
I'll second it, but we want to, and it wasn't, I didn't see the paperwork in there anyways as far as and some of this is required under the building permit, but smoke detectors, a landline.
Well, so this is a family apartment?
Oh, excuse me.
I don't know.
Correct.
Okay.
So, take that back.
Okay, so you,
I'll second.
okay. Is there any further discussion?
Sounds good.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The next item is Harmon Tourist Home. You could come forward just a little bit. And if you can introduce yourself and then just tell us about what you're looking to do.
Oh, okay. I'm Joyce Harmon from Flinthill, and my mother passed away this year, and so her house is on the same property, and I want to use it as a tourist home so that I can have access to it when the rest of my family comes to visit. So it would be rented out when my family is not in town, which is most of the time. They just come to visit periodically. So it makes sense to have the house do something.
And so it's existing and
Yeah, it's been there longer than I can.
Is there any questions from,
Yeah, you know, the one thing was about the septic system, I think is approved for 4 people, but no septic.
Is it, yeah, I had thought that, I think on the original application, I had put 3 bedrooms, and I was told by the health department that it's 2 bedrooms, so that's how it will be listed,
Great.
because it's a 2-bedroom septic. I didn't realize that.
And you have all the working smoke detectors covered on that side.
And just let me put it, because I'm familiar with that house, and that originally when we talked about fire extinguishers, it was on a house that was 2 stories. And the requirement for the fire extinguishers came in as 2 fire extinguishers, and that sort of got stuck on the application.
Oh, I see.
But basically, fire extinguishers are based on the number of stories, and in this case, it's a 1-story house. If there's a fire extinguisher, that is sufficient. You don't need to have 2.
That's why I have 2, so.
And if you have 2, that's great.
and then we have the staff recommended conditions. If you're familiar with them, maximum of 4 people, maximum of 2 cars, for assuming it's guests with an S of the person. No food service offered to the tenants or renters. And then the same, the fire extinguishers, 1 smoke detector, one fire extinguisher, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, emergency contact list, visible address sign. And that the permit terminates on the sale or transfer of the property.
Okay.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
I would suggest just adding one more condition as far as the no commercial signage, in line with what we did with the previous tourist home.
So it would be signage as the residents would have?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not putting any signs out there, so.
And actually, we did it last time, and it's actually, we're kind of doing a favor for the applicants, I think, in that if we throw in the no discharge of firearms on these, because, in her case, she's living on site, but even then, it makes it much easier on the homeowner to say, it's a county regulation, sorry, you can't go out back and.
Sure.
And certainly none in the house, right?
No, obviously not, but like I said, and that's something that I think, we need to continue to do, because that's the one thing about these, short-term rentals that can be a problem. And so we can just, it's easy to nip it in the bud, and I don't think anybody's, obviously you don't have the objection.
No.
You don't want to hear it.
Nope. No private practice in the backyard.
So how specific are you getting on that?
No discharge, they can bring, if somebody there are people that have permits to carry and whatever, and no, I've got no problem with them having them, but no, they do not discharge them on the property.
No.
Yeah, there would be a lot of animals on that property that would be really unhappy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to this. Okay. I'm going to open, is there anything else?
One point I will make, and it's just because it's me, and we have forms, and they need to be filled out, and this particular form was never signed and dated, the application. Which, was it's an oversight, and it's, but where it says signature or whatever, and date, they need to be signed and dated, and that, if you were at the bank or whatever, it's the same kind of thing. It's a legal form, and you can sign it in, and like I said, it's an oversight, but we need to do a better job on
So
that.
we're just making a point right now, right?
Well, if you wanted to sign it, that would be, okay.
I'd be happy.
Is that going to be the official vote? Okay. Is there anything else? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Can we just?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Sorry, public hearing.
I got so carried away. I forgot.
I'm sorry.
The public comment period, I'm going to open the public comment period. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this application? I'm assuming you do.
Yeah, I'm
Would
not.
you identify yourself?
My name is Lisa Jones. I live in Sperryville, Virginia. I have no opposition to this request, but I do want to just state that I looked up the lodging taxes that we collect in this county, and it looks like it's 2% of gross. Everywhere else that surrounds us, it's 5%, and it's 5 to 7%, and I think our lodging taxes are way too low. And I just went to a hearing about developing some, green field, and one of the justifications for it is that we need to have affordable housing, and that some of the reason we need to have affordable housing is because we've become more commercial. And I don't know where is the cost benefit to the homeowners and to the rest of the residents about converting so many places to tourist homes, because we're really depleting the pool of housing. And just as a resident, I think there needs to be some kind of tax incentive to prevent that from slipping out of that meat from slipping out of the sandwich. And I don't know if this is an appropriate place to say it, but I just wanted to say, not in the way of your thing at all. I'm a landowner myself. I have property on a beautiful chestnut house that is rented to people who live and work in the county. And I'm tempted to profiteer from that, but I don't know. I think that we need to claw some of that money back. That's all.
Ms. Jones, your point is well taken. Unfortunately, we don't control the taxation rate. That's set in the ordinance, and so I would definitely recommend that you voice your concerns to the Board of Supervisors.
I will. I'm coming.
Yeah, you made all very good points. So.
Yeah, I think great points.
So you're Ned's daughter? Is that?
I am Ned. Ned Johnson was my grandfather.
Your grandfather, yes.
Elizabeth and Ned Johnson are my grandparents.
Yes,
They wrote
yes.
the book.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought I recognized it. Anyway. Okay. Well, yes, I would just echo what Julie said, that we actually are, we administer the code, and so we grant permits, but we don't get into the taxation of the rates or any of those things. So that would be Board of Supervisors ultimately is who sets the, and if there are I think there are two components. There would be the food and the lodging.
I just looked at the lodging taxes. Page County, Madison County, Culpeper County, 5%. It runs between 5 and 7% for the local area. And it looks like that this property would be continued to be taxed as residential.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
sir, is the public comment period still open?
Yes.
I just wanted to add, my name is Christine Smith. I'm the chairman, not the chairman, I'm the Piedmont representative on the Board of Supervisors. I always look to the meals and lodging tax as a possible revenue source. And in fact, I've asked about that the last 2 years to make sure we are maxed out at what we can charge for meals and lodging. I'm not sure what you were looking at in terms of if it's county to county. It should be 2% and 3% respectively, and that is what we're charging. We were not able to increase it in the
So
past 2 years.
2 on the lodging and 3 on the
Is food, if I remember off the top of my head correctly. But I have checked with the county administrator and also with our treasurer and
Okay.
other officials before to see if we could increase that, because it would be sort of a seamless way to have more money coming into the county.
Yeah.
But it is just not an option. There is some action in play in VACO, which is the Virginia Association of Counties, and some changes possibly happening at the state level that would give us more autonomy and an ability to increase that.
Yeah.
And I certainly do think that is a good option for us at the time. If there is ever an ability to raise that, I think, like I said, it's sort of an invisible way to increase county revenue.
Well, the other thing was if you can't claw that back, is then you need to change the tax basis.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So I don't mean to commandeer the public comment.
No,
but
you're
that was
fine.
the
No, you're
concern I
fine.
wanted to address.
You two need to talk.
Exactly. I'm happy to address any other concerns.
Okay.
And I would like to add a little more comment to it, because you may not be aware, but there's an additional state tax on top of that as well for the Airbnbs. And it's fairly high, I believe it's about 7%.
Is that right?
That's correct.
It's not the 5.3% sales tax.
It's not,
More
no,
than
it's
that.
different.
Okay, okay. Okay, until we figure that out, I think we're gonna go.
Also, I think we can do that.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
Okay, so is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay, I'm closing the public comment period. What would the board like to do here? There.
I'd like to
Your
approve.
district, okay.
Yeah, I'd like to approve the
So you'd like to grant the permit?
Steph, if you're making the motion, I'll just, I guess, suggest perhaps add the staff recommended
Yeah,
conditions, the no
great.
commercial signage, and then the no discharge of firearms.
Thank you.
Would you
Yeah.
concur?
I make a motion to accept this application with the following conditions: maximum of 4 people.
Oh, no, that was the previous one. Here, I'll pass
Oh,
it.
did I give you wrong?
That was
No.
No,
For her to read that, those are the conditions.
Oh, what are you writing?
That's just
Well,
so
we're- you
she
can
knows
write this.
what exactly what the, if she wants to add anything to that.
Because you've got these other features.
Okay, so, including the staff recommendations, no commercial signage, and no discharge of firearms. Thank
Okay,
you.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you. Is there anything else I need to do right now?
I guess get to work.
You're free to go.
Okay, the next item is the Ford tourist home.
Well, this is us.
Okay. Do you want to just come maybe forward to just one of you or?
All right, well, I'm Maggie Ford. And we like to, we live outside of Sperryville, and we have a cottage behind our house. And when we don't have friends stay at the cottage, we like to rent it out on Airbnb.
Basically what you're calling a tourist home, and I believe we've submitted all the necessary paperwork, and I think everything is in order. We just came to see if you all had any additional questions. It does sound like there are a couple of additions there with regard to the no discharge of firearms, and we're perfectly content with that as well.
How did you plan to address the water issues?
Yeah.
You
I
talked
think I
about
included
septic
that
or
in
well.
The septic, yeah.
Yeah,
in the background documentation, that the maximum number of people for that would be 6 people. 3 in the cottage and the 3 of us that live in the house. And so I think that,
and we will supply,
now in terms of water,
Water.
for people to drink water, we would just be giving them, bottled water.
Oh, Bob, one.
Bottled water.
Because it's a.
No food or anything like that, just bottled water. They would know that that's going to be available to them, that basically we have a spring, and so they're provided with bottled water to drink, as well as, brush your teeth and things like that.
How about wash
yeah, it's
dishes?
wonderful water, spring water.
Spring water.
And washing, you won't get sick from washing yourself with that. I mean,
But
we lived
is
there
it-
almost 40 years.
Is it
We
apt
never
to
get sick from
be, is
it.
it apt to be potable? Is it?
Is it what?
Yes, we drink it all the time.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's all we drink.
But
I take it to my mother.
have you tested it? Is that?
Yeah, we've had it tested in the past,
Does it-
and we've agreed to have it tested once a year.
Oh, yeah, great.
So if it's good,
Actually, the last time it was tested, they told us they'd never seen such clean water.
okay, well, I don't know what the, but, so the septic, and there was the issues of possibly putting some sort of deed restriction on the occupancy, or what was that all about? Was that there?
That was a
Yeah.
recommendation from the
managed.
health department.
From the health department. Ed would agree to that.
Along the line, I mean, back before you owned the property, I think, that,
Right.
you know, it was approved for a 3-bedroom
Correct.
system.
Right.
But you've got a 5-bedroom house according to the assessment records.
Correct.
Plus the cottage, so that's 6.
Correct.
And the recommendation from the health department is that you need to put at the courthouse, a restriction on the deed that says that that the house is restricted to 6, or the property is
Yes, we've
restricted.
agreed to do that.
But it's a legal document that has to be filed at the courthouse.
Correct.
But could I ask a question about that, is what's the problem with adding a couple of lines to the drain field?
Some what?
Adding
What is
additional
the
lines to the
problem with
drain
adding
field.
a couple of lines to
Oh.
the drain field and just being fully, where you have the bedrooms to match what you have?
Oh, but they approved everything.
Well, we
No,
haven't,
no,
we haven't approved
They
it.
haven't.
Oh, I see.
No.
Well, that would be in lieu of modifying your deed. So we're just trying to say that you have options.
We have options, yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see, okay.
But-
So,
No,
But, I mean, my issue with that is going down the road, somebody else moves in and they fill the house up and nobody goes and checks the deed and
No, I
just
thought that
glosses
was-
over. No, well, what I'm just saying is, that seems like a lot to count on in the future when we could just put a couple of lines in and fully accommodate. Is there some hardship in that or some?
I have no idea what it would cost or anything along that line. Hadn't considered that. That's an option we could look at. But I would say that we would either do that or we just go ahead with the filing the
Right.
papers to
But I
make it
think-
clear.
I was saying, that's, and I think you understand, and you should be able to understand this, Alex, is that you need to know also, I mean, because this kind of came up here, but if at a point in time you choose to sell the property and you go through the sale process and it comes up with you trying to sell a 5-bedroom house and you've only got a 3-bedroom perk, that's just something you need to be aware of, and, right, Alex, and that can be a problem that.
That's it.
But I'm not even worried about that.
Yeah.
No, you don't, I'm not worried about it, I'm just saying that,
I don't see
you
what
need
that
to be aware
does
of it.
I don't see what that does to satisfy our needs to see a properly functioning septic system in the place.
Well, so what
So just because somebody says down the road, you're gonna have to tell people about this. We have potentially 12 people on a 6-person system, and I think that that's not really a good idea. I mean, can we make them pump the box like
No,
every?
but I mean, I feel like we could require that they go ahead and make the drain field adequate. I don't see, unless there's some topographical problem, but I feel like that would be reasonable for us to ask you to do that, to grant the permit. Because I don't recall we've ever done anything like that before, where we basically waived and allowed a substandard system, I'm sort of familiar with that area. I don't think you'd have any problem. Is that?
Well, I guess the issue there is, it looks to me like it's a huge drain field. You take a look at it and everything else, and it could very well be that, in fact, they would cover more people than what being said. So I guess we'd have to have somebody who's an expert come out and take a look at that and say, okay, actually, they said it was X amount, but no, it'll definitely hold a lot more.
You can do that. It's not.
Okay.
It's not going to cost as much as a new drain field. A new system.
Right.
And it's thousands of dollars maybe, but it's not tens of thousands of dollars.
Right, I understand.
would,
The big question is the tanks up to it.
well, I mean, but that's something that's not really our deal.
No, yes,
But we could just require that it meet, I mean, I'm not sure that I see, because I think that what we would be opening up is the possibility that someone comes and says, hey, I've got a 5-bedroom house and I, want to add another building to it, and, I mean, because I don't think that's such a good idea.
No, and none of this is, we can't require any of this really anyways, as far as,
Well, we can require that, we can require that they have the adequate septic to meet what's there.
Right, but, and I think the way we can do that is by, in the motion, restricting the occupancy of.
I don't want to.
But there's no way for us to enforce that or manage that.
Yeah, I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
Because think about when you have a house that will handle, how many bedrooms?
5.
5.
5 bedrooms.
5 bedrooms, okay, and then another house that handles 2. And then the temptation is just all loaded up. I mean,
I would say that 2 of the bedrooms are a single, there's no way we put 2
No,
people
I understand.
into those.
And also, I want to say, we have only 2 bathrooms, we might have 5 bedrooms, so we have only 2 bathrooms in the house.
But that's sadly, they don't, the health department does not see it that way.
Well, do the
And,
people,
it has nothing to do with the number of bathrooms. It has
well, the
to do
people
with
don't go to the
bedrooms.
bathroom less, with the less bathrooms, I don't think, do they? I mean, I don't know. I've never stopped in my head. I know. Okay, well, is it any other questions? I'm going to open the public hearing, public comment part of the hearing. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak on this application?
I was just gonna say in general, you brought up the dark skies thing earlier, would it just make sense to go ahead, when you have these zoning requests, that you go ahead and put a dark skies provision in all these zoning requests, and make them to tourist homes for the entire place? And then you could at least wrap that up as part of the request.
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure whether that we can force people to do that or not.
I think you could.
I don't know.
We can ask them to not shoot guns, we can ask them to not shoot light bulbs, or, not photons, or whatever. I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference.
Well, I think that if somebody objected, I'm not sure where we would stand on that. I'd be interested to know.
I mean, I think it's a concern, because if you think of a tourist home, you think of porch lights left on for people to come in, et cetera, and it's already getting pretty bad out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's a reasonable request when someone wants to make a provision, that they go ahead and agree to that on the property.
Isn't that a provision of our zoning that the lights that the lights shine down and not off of your own property? That
Is that-
confined, that beam of the light be confined to your own property and shine down? I thought I read that in the zoning, I have to review that, but that may already be a requirement.
Well, I guess
We just make
But
that
how do we-
attention.
you're bringing up a good point. I don't know that we have a good answer to that, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm highly in favor of it.
I mean, if that were to be a request.
I didn't hear a thing, I'm sorry.
Okay. There's this Dark Skies initiative
Uh-huh.
that we talked about with one of the previous applicants. And he agreed to abide by, where you don't have light shining up, or they're shielded to put the light down, so forth. I mean, just to be sensitive about
So
it.
are you talking about headlights?
We could be, yeah.
Yeah, I think you always have to have lighting for people coming in and what have you. We do have a.
No, it's not a prohibition on lighting.
No, it's
a-
just a kind of.
I understand, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Don't shoot to the sky.
Okay. Is it any further public comment on this application? Okay. I'm going to close the public comment. How would we proceed here? Who's in Sperryville? Nobody.
Yeah, we're technically Woodville. We're the last
Oh, Woodville.
house in Woodville.
I don't think we have.
But we're
any-
closer to
Are you in
Sperryville.
Woodville? Oh, okay.
That's me. I will make a motion to approve with the condition of the establishment of an adequate drain field that I guess Medj would,
By the health department,
by the health
to
department.
match the bedrooms.
But the health department came out.
No, we're different.
They're
Oh,
different.
I see.
We're different. Is that, so we would require that, with the condition that the drain field, the septic system be brought up to match the number of bedrooms.
Correct. And I understand what you're saying with respect to limiting the residency, but we just can't take word for it. It has to match, the numbers have to match. And other conditions would be just similar to what we've been applying to others. No firearms discharge, no commercial signage.
Correct.
And were there any other additional conditions from the staff report?
Just visible.
Visible address.
And the smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, fire extinguisher,
Terminates at the sale of.
emergency contact list.
Do you want me to read through them, or you got them?
Well, I was
Okay.
looking at one, and the address sign, so that people can see it. What about this permit terminates upon sale of the property?
I think that should be standard
Yeah,
to all of
That's what
them.
we're doing.
Yes.
Okay,
That
and
should be
the
it.
commercial, the issue with the commercial signage is, in this type of use, you could, unless we put a limitation, have a very huge sign.
Correct.
And so we prefer not to have that, that's why.
Oh,
we
No,
want-
we're not planning on putting it
No.
signage.
Okay, anyway. Okay, so that's your motion, and you've got that.
So it's going to be the staff recommended conditions, which he outlined. The health department certification of an adequate drain field, no firearms.
And that,
No discharge.
and it goes with the property, and I'm not sure if, is
That's already
that
on the
in
staff
stock now?
recommended.
Oh, okay, good.
And then no commercial signage.
Correct.
Great. I
Okay.
second.
Any further?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Well, staff beat you to it.
Oh, okay.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
That was not so bad.
Have a nice evening.
Okay. you too. Okay, now we're on to new business. And we've got the first, okay, so my understanding here, Michelle, I want to make sure I understand, this has not been advertised.
Correct, it has not been
Okay,
advertised.
so we're just talking about setting a hearing,
Yes.
date if we're going to hear it. And Robert, you want to?
Yeah, okay. Thank you for hearing this variance. If it pleases the board, I'll stand here. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
So
yeah.
everybody can hear me?
Yeah, and just if you would, just state your name.
Yeah, so Robert Chapman, sometimes called Archer, Piedmont District. Some background about the properties that we're looking at. I purchased in 2019. There are 3 properties I purchased from a lovely gentleman named Troy Jenkins, who runs our sewer. I lovingly called the properties the 3 Bears. They're at the western entrance to Sperryville on 211, opposite side of 211. They are, I call them the 3 Bears because one's small, there's a middle one, there's a larger one. For a number of years, they've been, for lack of a better term, derelict, unused, unloved. And I saw potential standing in the parking lot of my store one day, wanting to kind of see a better streetscape. So this past August, I finished the first property, Baby Bear, that's now a jewelry store. The second property I'm working on, Mama Bear, is hopefully will be a brewery. And the third property, Papa Bear, it's about an 1,800 square foot, 1909 structure. It is, it's it's a big house, and for about 40 years, it's looked the way it does today. It has water, it has sewer, it has electricity, but it's just been empty. It's too close to the road. The building is, I believe, if you look at my little presentation page, to page 8, maybe page 9, the property sits about 22 feet from the closest lane line of Route 211. So what's happening is you've got a property that was
So the father bear is on the right?
on the left in yellow.
The yellow
The
one.
yellow, that's the current structure.
Which is the mother bear?
Mama Bear's to the right. That one's hopefully going to be a brewery.
Okay.
The property in question is on the left, the yellow with the green drawings there. So that property, you know, you couldn't build that today. You couldn't build a building, you couldn't subdivide that land like that. It was done way before the ordinances were put in 86 when they were codified. So you've got a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming property. By right, I could rebuild, fix up this building, right, where it stands. I think it's too close to the road. I would like to move it back about 75 feet from 211, straight back, maintaining the footprint of the building as it sits upon the land. And I'd like to rotate it 90 degrees. That aside, the square footage on the land is going to be maintained. So, you know, I've been working with Ms. Summers in trying to figure out, there's a lot of gray area here. The ordinances specifically don't say you can't move grandfathered structure. Yep.
Hold you up just for a second.
Yep.
We're not actually conducting the hearing tonight.
Right.
Is that
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what can we do tonight?
Well, so I'm just, I may get back to it, but, well, we would determine, I believe, Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we would decide to set it for a certain time for a hearing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I mean, it's interesting what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I don't know that we would get into the specifics unless there's some,
I do have a question, if that's okay. Can I ask a question there?
yeah.
Okay.
It's already, okay.
Have you considered remedying this, the whole situation without a variance by just doing a boundary line adjustment?
So I own the property to the right, the property to the left I don't own. I did discuss that with Ms. Summers. That would, to some degree, remedy it. In thinking about it, I want to long-term keep the property on the right, but I don't want to set myself up for failure in case I do want to sell it at some point, so.
Okay, because like, I don't mean adjusting it on that side, I mean adjusting it on this side.
Yeah.
And it is technically a variance if you take the building down and you can't reconstruct it, it's no longer grandfathered.
Well, so,
2 years.
no.
No.
You're probably not taking it down right away, correct? Okay. I mean, because you would have a problem in rebuilding it.
I was going to say, along the lines of what you're saying is that reading local code and state code, when a building is declared as being non-conforming,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be continuously occupied. If it is occupied, if it is not occupied for 2 years, it loses that status.
Well,
It is no longer
that's
It
hold on,
loses
hold on,
its-
hold on. I don't
it
want to
loses
get-
its use.
I don't want to get into all this.
I'm trying to say
wait,
it's-
I kind of agree with what he's probably going to say,
What?
which is, maybe it does lose its non-conforming use, but I don't think the building goes away.
Building what?
The building doesn't go away because it's not occupied. It's there, I
But
believe.
But that's not
but
what
it's
I'm
no
saying.
longer
but
non-conforming,
that's what I'm
it is
saying.
merely a structure.
Okay, so rather than getting into all this, you want to move the building back, you want a variance on that side and the other side? Does it require them on both sides?
No, so it's the building, as a structure is non-conforming on the front because it's too close to the closest lane line of 211. You know, the building was built in 1909, so it was there before the highways. It's conforming on the left side by 25 feet, which is the setback on the side yard. It's non-conforming on the right side. The setback, you know, between the property lines is about 13 feet. So and granted, I do own the property to the right.
Correct.
I would like to move the entire building back. So, you know, with the variance process, you have to identify an ordinance to kind of attack, for lack of better terms. And I think with this is, I'm going after 17075, which says, you know, building a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot.
Well, the fact of it being a lot could merit a variance under that standpoint, except for the fact that you can, seems like you can pretty easily remedy the variance.
Exactly. The variance is if there's no other way to cure the issue. And if you have a way to cure the issue, you can do it yourself.
Well, and so that does not stop you, I don't think that stops you from making an application to us and having a hearing.
Right.
But that is something to think about, because there is the possibility that you would have the hearing, which we will advertise. I guess you've already paid your fee though. Yeah, so we would advertise, and then we would have a hearing, but that's just to say that, you know, it looks like it's possible you could do exactly what you're trying to do there with a pretty minimal boundary adjustment. And so that's a possibility that...
Well, it is.
What I'm saying, it's a possibility that we would say, well, you are able to do that, and so therefore, we don't think it rises to the hardship required. The other thing, I'd have to get information, or we would, what really, the ordinance, when this was created, because there's one ordinance that goes back to like 1962 or 63.
And then there's 73. Right?
And then there's a 73. And then there's this 86 one she referred to. So where did it fit when it was actually created? Because my understanding was it was created in about 1980.
86, I believe. That's correct.
The divisions.
Oh, when those were broken up? Oh, good question.
It was 1980, and the applicable provisions would have been in the 1973 zoning ordinance.
Right.
So that's all information that would be relevant to this.
They were
decision.
approved, but they shouldn't have been. Maybe it shouldn't have been approved at all.
Right,
I mean,
even though it wasn't your fault. It was a self-created hardship, which then makes it hard to grant you a variance.
Right.
But back again, I still think it's not something that you can cure and do exactly what you want to do.
Well, let's say I want to retitle the neighboring property as something completely different. I don't think that should hold me up from trying to do what I want to do with this lot and this grandfather parcel and this grandfather structure.
That may be more for the actual hearing, is what you're getting into there, because I don't...
I think there's certain questions we can raise right now.
But we could schedule a hearing.
I don't think the variance process speaks to the title.
Now, here,
No, it's totally up to you. I mean,
but what we can do, I would say, I think there's enough to schedule a hearing.
Like I said, I would like to have an answer, or
Why don't we
have awareness right now on the code 170-74, and you go to E, and it says, if any non-conforming use, which is what this was,
but
if any non-conforming use ceases for any reason for a continuous period of 2 years. This was a residential structure.
But it's not a non-conforming use.
It's a non-conforming structure.
Excuse me,
But that is not
let
what
me
you're talking
go
about.
back. This is under general regulations, and it also applies to non-conforming structures.
Where does it say that? Because I don't think that's true.
Well, my goal, because this is all highway commercial, is to bring this into a commercial use, so that would kind of take care of it.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be a totally different thing that we're not addressing.
And that's a
Our-
change of use.
Forget about the use. Our thing is the building and the non-conforming structure
Correct.
and the variance to accommodate
Exactly.
the structure. And that's really, we're not getting into the use.
Yeah.
There's the zoning which addresses that. And unless he comes to us for a special use permit or he wants to do something with a special exception, I don't see where we even get into his use.
Correct.
Well, I have a question about that. Maybe not, but what, do you envision the business being here? Is this the brewery?
So the brewery hopefully will be to the right, the property without any highlights on it. To the left is what we're talking about now. That's hopefully going to be a commercial use. It's either going to be, I would like to leave it open to any by right highway commercial use, but my plan is to do a 4-suite, like an Airbnb. It would fall into the category of hotel or motel.
Well, let me ask you this, just since we're talking, just
Sure.
hypothetically, but that building on the right is too close to the
Yeah.
line as well.
Yeah.
So you could adjust the line by moving it over a few feet on this side and move it over a few feet on that side. And probably you.
I don't think there's 25 feet between those two buildings.
No, well, yeah, but you're gonna, if you move that building, there's not gonna be a building there.
Yeah.
And so you could move it over and then move it over up above, and you would in 2 strokes of the pen, or 3, you would eliminate two,
Problem.
whatever you call it.
So you're saying just make it a long, narrow building?
No, just make that line that runs along your brewery,
Yeah.
move it over a few feet to put that building in compliance.
Uh-huh.
And then go up and move the line behind the building over the other way
Yeah.
to make it in compliance.
Well, you still have a 1 acre minimum.
Yeah,
The highway
well,
commercial.
no.
All of these are non-conforming to the
No.
area, so they're non-conforming period.
And the, actually, the legality of the lots is in
But-
question also.
But you could actually have
adjust the
the exact
illegality.
same acres that you have now if that was important.
Is that a thing?
Have to look into it.
Well, no, Michelle, he would,
He's going one way at
I was gonna
the
say-
beginning of the line and then moving it over at the, above the baby, mama beer.
so that, if
Yeah.
the,
But can you
move this line over here and this line over here
do
equally.
a boundary line adjustment for non-conforming lots?
Well, you can do that. In other words, because you're eliminating you're eliminating the encroachment on the setback.
I hear you.
It'll be a lot easier, and I'm just telling you with your plan,
Yeah.
like if you can't, according to variances, you can't take a non-conforming structure,
Mhm.
tear it down,
Right.
move it somewhere else, even if it's the same footprint.
Right.
Because once you tear it down, it's
It's
like,
no longer not, it's
it's no
gone.
longer non-conforming.
It's gone.
But you
It's
can,
zero.
you can build a building on a parcel. But it would be better if it was wide.
Well, you can rebuild, but it's gonna have to conform to the setbacks.
Which it looks
You
like
can't move, number one, you're not going to take this building and pick it up and move it,
Well,
correct?
look,
Yeah.
Ron,
From looking at the building,
You
I
can't
mean,
do that either.
that building's falling.
Ron, he can build a building that would conform with a boundary adjustment.
Right.
And both of them would conform. I don't know, I guess that other one is too close to the road.
We can't worry about the other one.
No, but, well, yeah, we can. That other one is probably too close in the front, right?
Yeah, and I've taken the porch off, so that's.
But it's an existing building.
Yeah, it's an existing.
And so the other one, you could move it back just as exactly as what you want.
Exactly.
And then neither one would be in violation of the setback. And that would seem,
So if we can do a dogleg property boundary adjustment around that back building,
Exactly.
I'm fine with that. But
Well, you
I've not
know,
read anywhere that that's a remedy.
yeah, that's a remedy because you no longer have an encroachment. So if you don't have an encroachment, you don't need to be.
Can you sign this?
Well, well, okay, I tell you what, keep your variance, I mean, he's paid his fee, right? We'll set it for a hearing, hopefully you'll figure this out, and then you can call us and say, thank you very much. Do you want to set it for next month?
Yeah.
I mean, shall we just
Do
do
you
that?
want to give time to try to get the boundary adjustment first?
No, that's, I mean, what is that?
I have one question on the aside.
Yeah, shouldn't be that hard.
With the business establishment here, I just want to make sure that the result isn't going to be that there's going to be parking from the building up to the road, that there's going to be some kind of a, it says new parking there, but, if it was restricted to that kind of a space, it would be one thing, but, I would like to make sure that someone just didn't get paid and covered with cars.
Well, I don't know if we have
Yeah.
To
control.
for
I mean,
parking for the brewery or something.
Say, if you try to do a boundary adjustment, you may be opening up a can of worms in that there's a question as to whether when that division took place,
well,
that it actually
no,
conformed and it exists the way it is right now, but if you start to try to change something that doesn't, that shouldn't have happened in the first place, you may...
well, Ron, it's a non-conforming lot. It probably was created in error.
Correct.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yes.
Really.
That
So,
seems clear.
I mean, but I don't know that, they've paid taxes on it for 30 years or 40 years. I
Yeah,
don't know,
it's
40.
transferred.
So we can only give a variance if there's no other remedy, and there's another remedy.
And that's a very reasonable remedy.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if that would work, that's fine, but...
Well,
no,
and
but-
to compound that, it was a self-created hardship, not by him, but by the former owner.
Right.
So,
You mean by drawing a line that was, and I don't even know what the setbacks would have been at that time. I don't know
I
if we,
think,
under the ordinance at the time that the lots were created, maybe it was in error, because, but I mean, we'd have to research, somebody would have to research that, and I'm sure we can probably look back and figure out what that zone allowed in the setbacks from the side, and to see if that line created, it may have created whatever you call it, encroachment at that time. And I don't know that, I don't think we're talking about undoing it, but I think we are talking about the possibility of eliminating 2 violations of the setback in one fell swoop. Michelle, you look troubled. Do you have a comment that might,
We've put our heads together on this, and seeing the most direct route was kind
did
of
you ever look at this option?
property line adjustment. We talked about it, but I can't speak for Michelle, but I was under the understanding that a non-conforming lot, you cannot do a property line adjustment unless you bring it up to a full acre.
Well, no, I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think you could do a boundary adjustment and render a property non-conforming. I don't think you can do that, but you're already, and I mean, if you were keeping the acreage approximately the same.
yeah.
I mean, anyway, you'll have time. Why don't we just say that we'll hear this next
okay.
meeting? Is that?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
One other thing I'll just have you research, just so
Sure.
you know, in preparation for it. I think it's in the new floodplain zone that was just voted, an overlay district that was just added. So you may want to look at that as well.
Yeah, thank you. If you could see the full plat there, it was in the floodplain well before.
Yeah.
So anything we build will be.
Is that dotted line the flood?
Yeah.
So it is in,
But so this side is not in floodplain?
No, it still is.
But there's this new overlay zone that was just voted upon at like the last supervisor meeting,
Right.
so it's new, so I'm not really sure what
Where it
those
is.
restrictions are, or what it means, but something we all need to be aware of.
Okay.
And you can build in a floodplain, but you have to build at a higher standard.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
gonna advertise it, and our ad will go out at the beginning of the month. When does it have to go out?
Probably the next week.
And are we gonna allow him to modify his request any if he needs to be?
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. I mean, I don't know what you might need, but would we be?
I think we have to, whatever's available to the public, right,
Yeah.
on BoardDocs? Yeah.
Well, but it will be put on the schedule for next month. And he will, my question is, are we going to allow him to modify his application prior to the advertisement going out if need be? I don't know what that might be, but.
I'm not sure what that would be. If we could do a property line adjustment, a boundary line adjustment, I would pull the application and then it would be.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
All of it, well, it isn't technically, but I guess are we going to let anybody speak?
You're the chairman.
Okay. I mean, all unofficially, if you'd like to say something quick.
Thank you. I'm an architect, and I've dealt with things like this before. In most cases, you're removing the building, existing building, and building a new one. We usually make the building to fit within the regulations and all the setbacks. And since you're building brand new, you can make the building to have a similar look or to represent the period or whatever you need to do. But to make the shape of the building, that would be the easiest way to deal with this problem.
Okay. I mean,
And I'd just like to say also that I'm all in favor of doing something with that property. But, but as far as the variance goes, it's going to be, I think, very difficult for us as a board to grant any kind of variance on this property. You need to be aware of that, so you're going to have to look at, look at other options, because from what, I did a lot of reading last couple of days, I think Julie did the same thing, is that variances are very difficult to put forth. And you've got to dot the i's and cross the t's and everything. And in looking at this, I'm not seeing anything that we could, justify granting a variance. So you just need to know that and try to come up with some other solution.
okay, so we're setting it for next month. Okay. Okay.
One more question?
Yes, that's fine.
Is there some reason that you're preserving that same square footage footprint, that same L shape? Is that required? I mean, that kind of pushes you toward the edge where you...
So not to hold the county to an ultimatum, but I could rebuild that building where it stands,
Yeah, that's
fix it up too close to the road. I don't want to do that. So I think the variance process, this fits within the spirit of the variance process perfectly. It's like making a building more safe. Even though it's non-conforming on the side yard, as I move it back, it's still not going to be non-conforming. And so I wanted to preserve that footprint, square footage, because it's grandfathered.
Because what?
Because it's grandfathered?
Technically not really, but, okay, that's fine.
I was just wondering why
The structure's
We've got one
into
other,
this L shape.
we've got one other item on our agenda.
Okay.
I was hoping we could do, oh, no, two, that's right.
Well, right, and we're situated now in parking space.
Okay, but we're gonna set it for next month. Okay. The next item, Mike, are you here for this?
I am,
Mr. Chairman, the applicant, Mr. Thomas, is also.
Oh, okay,
Go ahead. Yeah, this is just the other variance on your new business agenda. We're just here on a preliminary matter. I believe that we have submitted enough materials that hopefully you can find it's appropriate to advertise this for a public hearing at the next meeting. Happy to answer any questions preliminarily that the board members may have this evening.
so when Mr. Clark did the original survey, or the survey, he was assuming it was, the zoning was different.
I think you assumed that it was agricultural
Yeah.
zone with a 100-foot front setback and 50-foot side and rear setback. And it only came to light years after Mr. Thomas purchased it that in fact the property is zoned in the conservation district.
And so this lot has existed for a lot, this lot.
Well, these lots are in that Skyline Falls subdivision, you may be familiar with that,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Sharp. They're at the edge of that property. That subdivision, I believe, I don't want to mistake, my recollection, it was done in the early 1960s. It may have even been done in the 1950s. I don't
That's
remember the
Browntown
exact-
Road.
Yeah, Browntown.
Exactly.
Roger Back.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Wow, he did that in the 60s?
60s and maybe even the late 50s. I don't quote me on
Okay. So, is there any, rather than hearing it right now, is there any agreement to go ahead and set this for the next month?
Sure.
So, is there any setting it for a hearing next month?
We can hear it. I'm questioning the hardship. And I think that's something that, it seems to me that from reading what you've given us or whatever, that the hardship was created by mistakes made by perhaps a number of individuals, but that's something in reading up on variances or whatever that is going to be very difficult for us to deal with.
Well, it's not self-created, and there's really no other remedy for him,
Yeah,
so.
So it's worthy of a hearing.
total.
So it's worthy of a hearing because I'm sure you'd like us to render an opinion tonight, but I guess we're going to have to wait. But so is it any other questions?
No.
Okay, so we'll set that for next month, is that?
it. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Great. We'll see you next month. Okay.
Appreciate it.
The next item is something about hay bale signs. And is this in general, just
In general, just that they're still out there, but it was brought to the Board of Supervisors at their last meeting, and I sort of see that a precedent has something been set, and we've got a governor's election coming up this fall, and I can see hay bale signs from Amosville to Sperryville, and the county needs to deal with it.
I think this was a wet season, wasn't it, with a lot of hay?
I think there was a lot of, what do they call it, foliage, which is where they
Silage,
put,
oh, the
Yeah.
silage.
whatever it's called, where you put the haylage or
Yeah.
whatever it's called, where you get the,
Thousands of little white
so
canvases.
you package it like that so it'll sort of decompose and be an actually,
It ferments, actually.
yeah, I think it'll be a better feed.
Yeah, but anyways, I mean, it has to do with the interpretation of political speech in relation to the signs or whatever, and basically, it should be handled by the planning commission, obviously, and redoing the sign ordinance, but for us to give some input into that, in that, I don't know, maybe everybody here thinks that they're fine, I don't know, but they don't meet the code. They violate the code in various aspects, and the only reason they were allowed this last time around was under the political speech
Would be
I thought they weren't allowed
portion,
because-
but if you do research on political speech in regards to signs, the political speech cannot be prevented, but how it is presented can be. And that becomes the issue, in that, yes, you can control the size, you can control the location to a certain extent, but you can't control the message. And that's where we've got it, that, yes, people can put up signs, but no, you can regulate the size of the signs. Discussion.
Okay,
We need to give some input. We can as a board.
The planning commission has taken this up. The planning commission has been tasked with that to revise the sign ordinance, and then it will go on to the board of supervisors.
And with all due respect, Ron, our focus on the BZA is very narrow to special use permits, variances, and interpretation of zoning maps, period.
Correct.
End of story.
And appeals to the.
That's correct.
I don't necessarily agree with that, in that is what we're required to do. But in reading the code, those are requirements of what we do, but they're not listed as, there are no restrictions that I can find.
There's the Dillon rule.
Well, okay, so but we would also have to, as the majority of us, would have to be interested in doing this. I don't know that we are necessarily.
Yeah, I don't think, I thought you were just thinking about having, the sign ordinance as it stands is in violation of the Supreme Court decision. And I think the Planning Commission is doing probably a lot of work in trying to make that ordinance comply. But the point, my guess is that there's not going to be a distinction between political signs and other temporary signs when they finally finish
And so
making.
when that settles out, then we'll know what.
Because I think if they do that, my humble reading of that case is that they would be in violation of the Supreme Court case.
You mean these hay bale signs?
No, saying political signs are going to be treated differently from every other kind of sign.
The signs cannot be content-based.
But it wouldn't be
It
in
what?
violation, it wouldn't be in violation of the Supreme Court if they said you're
You
limited
can't regulate signs
to
by
so many square
content.
feet on a single property.
No, no,
okay.
we cannot.
Of any
But if
size.
That's what we're saying.
But if you have,
You can control the sign.
And the planning commission's working on that.
but if you had a sign that was hay bales and it says, fresh apples sold here, that would be content of advertising apples.
That would be just part of the sign ordinance.
But that would be covered. So you're saying that Donald Trump, or whatever, or Biden, has to be treated the same
Or
as.
you don't want the apples either.
Would that, hay bales are movable, and anyway.
That's what I said, there are a lot of issues that need to be, and I was saying that we as a board, there's nothing prevents us from writing a letter to the planning commission with our thoughts, so that they can include that in or basically, we're talking to you right now, and you are the representative to the planning commission, and for us to give us, some thoughts from the board or whatever that you can transmit to the planning commission.
But us would have to be three of us.
What?
Us would have to be three of us.
And I don't see how this
Yeah.
falls within the scope of an appeal of the zoning administrator, a special use permit, a variance, or an interpretation of the zoning map.
Or-
It doesn't fall into any of those buckets, and that's our purview.
No, it doesn't.
Well, we agreed to put it on the agenda, and
Well, yeah,
We've
like
given
I
it
said,
a
that's,
little
you know,
hearing.
so basically, we are, I mean, we, obviously, we can't, you know, we don't legislate, but we have no say in the game.
well, we're not really enforcement either. We're not enforcement.
Or enforcement by
Fine.
conditions, and
If
that's it.
if it's
At
brought,
times, yes.
if it's brought to us,
Yes,
Well,
we,
and then we read the sign ordinance.
actually,
and say, well, this is either-
in revocations, we are enforcement.
so if Michelle wrote somebody a letter and said you were in violation because of the hay bale sign, and that person appealed, then we would hear it.
Correct.
And
Oh,
then
yes.
we would
Oh,
discuss
absolutely.
it very thoroughly. Or if Michelle said it's not in violation and somebody was offended, they could appeal it. But I just don't see where anything like that has happened.
Yeah, and then what we do is look at the ordinance. I mean, I guess if they propose an ordinance and it looks like it's too
I was
hard to
basically going along
understand.
with what we had done in the past, in that when the discussions were taking place on the comprehensive plan, at several points in time, we wrote letters to the planning commission expressing our feelings on certain areas
And I
that we
think-
felt were pertinent. Now, we
I
may have been
think-
out of line when we did
Well,
that.
no, but those areas were related to special use permits that we, tourist homes,
Tourist
bed
homes.
and breakfast,
Family apartments.
family.
And yes, and
whatever.
we rule on signs also.
But not routinely. I mean,
Well, it doesn't
how
make
many
any
times
difference.
we?
That's because we don't, the county
You know, what was
doesn't, the county
interesting?
doesn't enforce the sign ordinance, so therefore, there are never any complaints, and we never rule on anything.
Anyway, okay, well, you've made 3 points tonight, I think, or maybe 2.
Okay.
So I think that's good. Okay, is there anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
There's that,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
It's nice